Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Board of Commission, Bowling Green, Kentucky, regular meeting, City Hall, March 18, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. We're going to begin with the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Carlos Bailey.
Today, I think it started by Commissioner Sue Perigin, but I thought it was a great idea. So I'm inviting Donnie Hatchett, who's an 8th grader, to come and give the invocation. He's the son of Megan and Bryson Bailey. His father's also an associate pastor at Powerhouse. His brother was also in the play of Raisin in the Sun, along to play Travis. He played Travis, and Alan also played Travis as well. So, Donnie, take it away.
Everyone, please bow their heads and close their eyes. Lord, we invite you into this place so that our community members, our community leaders can make our city and our community a better place. I pray that when we get out of here, we can leave the community better than how we found it. And I pray that the people who are struggling can find hope in the decisions we make in here. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. I would ask everyone to turn to the flag as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donnie, thank you for giving the invocation for us tonight.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Mrs. Jackson, will you please provide a roll call?
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Perigin.
Here.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Beasley Brown.
Here.
Mayor Alcott.
Here. Mr. Meisel, do you have comments at this time?
I do, Mayor. I would like to recognize a couple of our BGPD officers, Officer Jeff Ward and Officer Amanda Roan. They were selected as honorable mention to the prestigious award of Top Cops. And there are only 50 officers representing 16 states, including some federal categories, who will receive these honorable mentions. And Officer Ward and Officer Roan are among those outstanding officers. They will be going to Washington, D.C. to be recognized on May 12th, and want to congratulate them and give them accolades for their job well done. And then, as usual, if you have comments to make, please sign the register. Public comments, please sign the register in the back corner of the room, and we'll take those up after our after our working session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meisel.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Our first item is approval of minutes for regular meeting, March 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Bailey. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown. Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-59.
Municipal order approving the promotion of Courtney Howell to the position of Environmental Compliance Coordinator in the Public Works Department.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bailey, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Meisel.
I'd like to ask Matt Powell, our Environmental Compliance Manager, to come up and make this recommendation. Matt?
Good evening. Thank you for the time. Briefly, I'd like to talk about the history of Courtney with the city of Bowling Green. We brought her on October the 5th of 2015 as an office assistant. She was promoted quickly to office associate and then to senior office associate. She ultimately joined the Environmental Compliance Division as an inspector in February of 2020. When the city's last public works inspector retired, we divided those duties amongst the Environmental Compliance Division and the Planning and Design Division. With about half of those duties coming over to our side and some additional duties that we all identified together here in this room last year, we created the city geologist position. And the former environmental compliance coordinator has since been promoted to city geologist. Courtney immediately rose to the challenge without being asked and assumed the duties of the environmental compliance coordinator. She has done a tremendous job. She is the organizational heart of our team, and she brings an unmatched passion for the people of this community and our natural resources. Her enthusiasm for the work is infectious, and she has worked diligently to establish strong working relationships with the development community across Bowling Green. Those working relationships have enabled her to accomplish more from the inspector's role than I ever would have thought possible. To list her accomplishments over the last year would fill multiple pages. I have them if you'd like for me to go through them, but I thought I'd highlight just a few. She was one of 8 women from across the country selected by the International Erosion Control Association to serve in a Women of the Industry leadership role, where she mentors students and leads periodic classes. She's the Kentucky State Representative to the International Erosion Control Association. She was elected by her peers from across the state of Kentucky to serve as a 2-year term as the Vice President of the Kentucky Stormwater Association. And just last year, she created the Glen Lily Construction Demonstration Site. She used a portion of a piece of property that the city owns because there was a landfill place there, and she has transitioned and transformed that property into a place to take contractors to help them better understand the requirements that are placed on them by modern standards. And so that's a place where she can take them and show them exactly what needs to be accomplished. That project won the Environmental Project of the Year award from the American Public Works Association. And I'd like to ask Public Works Director, Mr. Andy Souza, up to provide the background for one last accomplishment.
Thanks, Matt. So if everyone would indulge me for just 60 seconds. So Courtney is behind me with her son and her mother, and I'm going to have her stand up in just a second. And I wanted to say that this year we did the first ever Public Works Annual Awards. The highest award that we have is the Director's Award, and Courtney earned that award in spades for everything that Matt mentioned and then some. She was unable to receive that award, and so I'd like to present it tonight, and I appreciate the city manager allowing me to do so. Our award is our curb limestone that we pull out of the ground that dates back to 1900, and as we pull that out and replace it with concrete, we cut it up to make our award. So it's in the shape of Kentucky, and Courtney, that is your award. And so I humbly ask for your endorsement for her promotion tonight. Standing by for any questions.
Courtney, you gotta come up. And while you're up here, who's with you today? Your son and mother? Can you introduce?
Yes, Levi and Camilla Simpson. So I appreciate all the opportunities the city has given me, and I enjoy serving the citizens and my community.
Congratulations, Courtney. Further discussion? We're going to make this official. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey. Beasley Brown. Alcott.
Yes, and congratulations again, Courtney. Municipal Order Number 2025-60.
Municipal order approving the promotion of Tyler Phelps to the position of Surveyor 1 in the Public Works Department.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
I'd like to ask Andy Souza, Public Works Director, come back up and make this recommendation. Andy?
I have an amazing team of rock stars in Public Works, and I would like Melissa Kanzler, the city engineer, to come up and talk about him. This is her program.
No, it's okay, I was hiding. Thank you all for having me. We in Planning and Design are also excited to recommend a promotion of Tyler Phelps to Surveyor 1. Tyler is a graduate of Western Kentucky University in construction management. We hired him in 2018. He came in as Public Works technician and has since been reclassified as Construction Coordinator 2, and he has excelled since he began with the city in 2018. Some of his duties have included site compliance over the years, most importantly our capital improvement program, overseeing those projects, and then citizen response. Some of his accomplishments, and definitely not all to note, and most visible are Southwest Parkway, the downtown improvement projects, Small House Road multi-use path, and the roundabouts along Weston Street. A couple of years ago, Tyler came to us expressing his desire to pursue surveying. Well, he did have coursework with the university. I think HR can back us on how hard it was for us to find a surveyor to replace Rob Evans when he retired the first time, and Rob's here today. We searched and searched, and the profession itself is kind of a dying profession, and we had a really hard time finding any candidates at all to even interview. So with this in mind, we were very fortunate in getting Rob back for a second round, and he has graciously volunteered his time and efforts to kind of groom Tyler. Tyler has already proven to be an asset in that he's assisted with surveys on our capital improvement projects. We now have an in-house design team back together, so a lot of that is happening much quicker now. So Tyler has already probably completed 2 or 3 big projects that'll be let to bid here before too long. So another component besides gaining the experience under our surveyor is sitting for what is called the Fundamentals of Surveying exam. And Tyler came in last Tuesday, I believe it was, with some exciting news that he passed. With this passing, he is now considered a land surveyor in training. With that, he qualifies for the position that we're recommending tonight, Surveyor 1. In this position, he can now gain the years of experience to allow him to sit for the professional licensing exam and hopefully put him in a position when Rob does retire for the second and maybe final time to become a city surveyor if that's what he chooses to do in the future. So I'm here tonight to recommend Tyler to be promoted to Surveyor 1 and continue his path on to our surveying career path. Any questions? I think Tyler's here tonight. Tyler?
Tyler, did you bring anyone with you? Well, fantastic. Congratulations to you, and thank you for your endeavor, and we hope that you continue many years with us, and thank you for your professionalism. And birthday today, Melissa? Is that what Andy said? I heard. Okay, I'm
Mine.
hearing things.
I'm done with birthdays.
Andy spoke so fast. I thought he said it was your birthday. I apologize.
Nope, done. Had that last one, it was a big one.
All right. Commissioners? All right, we're going to make this official. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey. Beasley Brown. Alcott.
Yes, congratulations, Tyler. Municipal Order Number 2025-61.
Municipal order approving the promotion of Jennifer Lightfoot to the position of Administrative Assistant in the Finance Department.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
I'm just going to keep passing the buck on this. I'm going to have Katie introduce this one. Katie Schaller Ward, our Assistant City Manager and CFO. Katie?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am privileged and pleased to present to you a recommendation for Jennifer Lightfoot to be promoted to Administrative Assistant. She was hired in October of 2020 during COVID, so we didn't have a public meeting where she could bring her family, and so she is here today with her family. And then she was also promoted back in the fall of, 2022 to Office Associate 2. We had that Career Path program, and she scored on the assessment tests in one of the highest ranges for that promotion. And so tonight, I'm recommending that she be promoted to the Administrative Assistant. She's taken on quite a few additional duties that are very similar to our financial specialist. And because of our need to have separation of duties and internal controls, her position is really vital and key that we continue, and I wanted to have her be recognized for that capacity. So Jennifer Lightfoot is the recommendation for Administrative Assistant.
Okay.
She's here.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, you mind to stand up?
There you are. Do you have anyone with you, Jennifer?
Yes, I have my husband and my 2 daughters, Della and Callie, and my parents, Dan and Michelle.
That's a full pew, so
They never got the opportunity to come due to COVID and other things, so they wanted to come and support tonight.
congratulations tonight, Jennifer. All right, we're going to make this official. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes, congratulations. Municipal Order Number 2025-62.
Municipal order approving the probationary appointment of Linda Lane to the position of Communications Dispatcher 1 in the Police Department.
moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
A great opportunity here to add to our dispatch team. I'm going to ask Lori Gray to come up, HR Manager for Police, and make this recommendation. Lori?
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm here to recommend the appointment of Linda Land to the position of Communications Dispatcher 1. Linda is with us this evening, if you want to stand up. Linda has a bachelor's degree in psychology science from Western Kentucky University. Her most recent position was hotel night audit at Kentucky Downs Spring Hill Suite in Franklin, and she'll be joining our dispatch team. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Very much, Lori. Linda, hello, welcome. Are you here tonight with anyone? Well, they're watching, so wave to them, and we're fantastic. We're thrilled that you're coming on to our dispatch team and to our police team, and welcome to our team. All right, commissioners, ready? Okay, roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown. Alcott.
Yes. Congratulations, Linda. Municipal Order Number 2025-63.
Municipal order authorizing and accepting annual on-base content management software maintenance through a sole source from i3 ImageSoft LLC in the amount of $52,454.11.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beasley Brown, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
OnBase is an important software that we use citywide. It's a software that we use for document storage. We also have some workflow documents, some forms we've automated, made electronic, and just need to approve another year of maintenance, annual maintenance on this one, which would include phone support, upgrade assistance, any enhancements that we need in it, anything that comes up on this software that we need would go to Highland OnBase for service. This is sole source through the 13 Image South, and Danita Weeks worked on this and can answer any questions you may have on this one. $52,454 for another year of routine maintenance for our OnBase software system.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mizel. Questions from commissioners at this time? Okay, roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal Order Number 2025-64.
Municipal order authorizing and accepting bid number 2025-11 for aquatic chemicals from Spear Aquatics LLC in an amount not to exceed $99,469.94.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Beasley Brown. Mr. Mizel.
Well, it's March, and the weather is getting warmer, and pool season will be here soon, along with our fountains that we have around town. This bid here would be for some chlorine or chemicals to keep our water sources pure and clean, and would include Russell Sims Aquatic Center, along with the springs out at Lambkin and Circus Square. And so we went out for bid, got 2 bids, and Spear Aquatics came in with the best proposal for $99,469, and recommend them for approval for the annual supply of aquatic chemicals. Brent Belcher is here, can answer any questions you might have on this item.
Questions at this time? None. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal Order Number 2025-65.
Municipal order authorizing and accepting a proposal from Commonwealth Engineers, Inc. related to a request for qualifications for professional services for Ewing Ford Pump Station Improvements, RFQ 2025-23, in an amount not to exceed $162,250.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
I believe this was a capital item you all had approved in the current year budget. For some time now, we have not had use of our pump along Ewing Ford Road out of the river that pumps water from the river over to Crosswinds Golf Course for irrigation. The river has shifted many times, and that pump is no longer in the water. It's period, just not in the water, due to the changes. So we knew we had to do something to get that back to where it's working again. So we have gone out for RFP for services for an engineer to help us do this job, locate, put the pump in the right place where we need it, and make sure it's all working again. I think we're going to try to salvage as much as we can from the existing system. But the things that will be included in this bid here are design plans, permit gathering, assistance with bid documents, the bidding, and some inspection services. So went out for bid, and we are recommending CEI, Commonwealth Engineers, Inc., in the amount of $162,250 to do this work. And again, Brent Belcher is here, can answer any questions on this one.
Questions at this time?
Questions?
Yes.
About how long will it take this project to finish? Will it be ready for irrigation this summer? And then I have a second question after that.
Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. This is only for the design of the future pump. So FY25, we were approved for the design only. This would prepare us for the possibility of 26 approval. Obviously, that's a budget we have to do, but this would give us the budget number through that as well. So yeah, to answer your question, we would have to get the design, there's a lot of paperwork to do just to get the design elements finished. So we're quite a ways away from actually the project beginning.
And since the river is changing, how long do they think this will last and to continue to be in water this time?
It's a great question. I may eventually turn to Matt Powell because he's our kind of a river person. But with that said, nothing is for eternity with the river, right? It is an ever-changing flow of water. So I'm not sure any of us can really give a timeline with that, but I can tell you that our goal with everything we're doing with this would give us an extended period of time. We're talking years, if not whatever in the case. We're looking for the future. We want to make sure we're covered for the future. What happened on the last part of the river, you've got to understand that, if I'm not mistaken, Crosswinds opened in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So, we're now at 2025, so that kind of gives you a timeline of how much that river changed in that period.
Hey, Brent, can you explain the backup, the mobile pump, how that has
Initially,
worked?
when Crosswinds, Heartland at that time, when it was built with one river pump, the one we're talking about now, on the bank of the river. As time became evident, even in those early periods, during the summer months, the river didn't have enough water at some point, so we put what we called an emergency pump, a floating pump, for lack of a better term, in the middle of the Barren River, and that was our secondary source in those times. And then our third source is city water. Okay, so we have a holding tank, which is one of the ponds at Crosswinds that literally holds the river water until we draw it out to deliver on the course. So once the river pump, or our main pump came dry, we've been using the emergency pump as our main source for river water. But I can tell you that even since this last couple of years, when the lock dams were taken away, the volume of water in the Barren River now has changed to where that isn't even a guarantee all the time. So that's how much the river has changed in this period. So this will go back to at least giving us 3 sources of water. And obviously, once again, the river has changed, but we'll try to go back to the original thing and having 3 sources of water then.
We have a brand new irrigation system waiting to take it in at Crosswinds, ready to go. So
Irrigation system will work on city water. It's going to use it, whatever the water. It's irrelevant of what type of water it gets. It works regardless. Once again, once that holding pond has the river water, once we call the water, it goes out to the irrigation system. Almost 2 completely different systems, if that makes sense. What we're drawing here is delivering into the pond. Is that fair?
Okay, further questions?
Sure, if you have more, yeah, that'd be great.
Very, very briefly, those were projects that I worked with in the past, both the restoration of the original pump 13 or 14 years ago, and then the construction of the emergency pump thereafter. A couple of things are happening. I-65 bridge affects the hydrodynamics of the river as it's moving through, but you asked how far away can it go. There's ultimately a floodplain bounds on either side, and it can wiggle around within that floodplain, and it can get shallower and deeper, basically channel cut and channel deposition. Right now, the issue that we're having is the channel's gotten very shallow and very, very wide. So that floating emergency pump winds up sitting on its legs. However, with the loss of the Greencastle Lock and Dam, that river water moves through much faster and doesn't build the depth that it used to, so it also can't reach the original pump. That's the situation that they're in. Talking about longevity, and Mr. Gillum's over here, and he'll catch me if I say anything wrong, but we're also working with CEI on some of our other projects, Green Hills Extension, Whispering Hills Culvert Replacement, and for both of those, we're having to do extensive remodeling of the surface drainage systems around Bowling Green, and we're working closely with FEMA and the Kentucky Division of Water to do that. We are in the midst of a process where the federal government is remodeling all of these streams because of the loss of Greencastle Lock and Dam and also the age. So we're going to get brand new hydrodynamic information about how those streams move and work together that's going to be coincident to Brent's design because of other things that were happening. So they're going to have the benefit of knowing a lot more about how Barron is going to behave in the coming decades than we did 10 years ago about the last 10 years. So their design is going to be able to provide a heck of a lot more surety than just we're hoping for the best. We're going to know a lot more about the river over the course of the next year.
So much.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brent, both. Further questions? None? Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-66.
Municipal order authorizing renewal of bid number 2023-45 for Police Department uniforms from CMS Uniforms and Equipment, Inc., Gauls LLC, and Nats Outdoor Sports.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
We bid this out some time ago and ended up with 3 vendors. We are asking tonight to re-up with these 3 vendors, CMS Uniforms and Equipment, Gauls, and Nats Outdoor Sports. There is one, Gauls has requested a 5% increase in the current pricing, and everybody else, I think, has locked in at the same, but this would be the second renewal of bid 2023-45. Captain Eric Woodward is with us here tonight. Wrote the good memo for you. There's a breakdown of who gets what in this the bidding, CMS, Gauls, and Nats. And Captain Woodward or Chief Delaney can answer any questions you might have on this one, but recommending renewal of these contracts for police uniforms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mizel. Good to see you, Captain Woodward. Good to see you, Chief. Questions at this time? All right. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-67.
Municipal order authorizing and accepting bid number 2025-29 for Fire Station Number 4 kitchen renovations from Property Renovation Services LLC in an amount not to exceed $85,000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beasley Brown, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
This is another capital project we had in the budget that you all approved. It's a refurbishment of the kitchen over at Station 4 for Fire Station on Morgantown Road. Went out for bids, and it was an evaluated bid based on price, scope, and design. We got 4 proposals back in, and we are recommending the award go to Property Renovation Services, or PRS LLC, in the amount of $85,000. This would basically replace some cabinetry, laminate some cabinets, put some stainless steel countertops back in, and some new appliances. This station is roughly 25 years old or more, and would also actually install 36-inch gas range. Chief Brooks is here. Deputy Chief Brett Smith is also here, can answer any questions you might have on this one.
Okay. Mizel, Chief, it's great to see you tonight. Commissioners?
Excited about if you have any cooks out there. I know they're going to get excited to have a good new kitchen. So excited for them.
Okay. Further questions? Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-68.
Municipal order accepting and adopting the Bowling Green Fire Department Policy and Procedures Manual.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Bailey. Mr. Mizel.
EGFD tries to keep their policies and procedures manual up to date. Before you tonight is the latest revisions. Some of the updates include new improved services, some title and rank changes, just some language changes here and there, updated staffing numbers and assignments, and some operational changes, but pretty much mostly operational type changes in this revision. But Chief Brooks is here in the audience, can come up and answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Commissioners, questions on policy at this time? Yes. Commissioner Hill?
I have to, after reviewing this and thinking about this, ever since we received the agenda. I want to publicly thank Chief Brooks, Chief Delaney, and Jeff Meisel. For those of you all that know me personally, know that I have a hard time with part of this policy. It's regarding tattoos. I've struggled with this a lot, burned their emails up, but I had to come to the realization that if I could no longer trust Chief Brooks and Chief Delaney on what's best for their departments, then this would be a totally different conversation. So I have the utmost trust in our two chiefs. So thank you, and forgive me for my personal beliefs, but I do support you, and thank you for what you do for Bowling Green, and thank you, Chief Delaney.
Other commissioners? Quite a testament. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-69.
Municipal order authorizing the submission of an application to the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet 2025 Crumb Rubber Tire-Derived Products Grant Program in the amount of $181,413.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beasley Brown, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
CS and Parks collaborated on this one. We would like to go after the grant from Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet, the 2025 Crumb Rubber Tire-Derived Products Grant Program. It's a lot of words there. We would like to get this grant to purchase the pour-and-play surface over at Covington Woods Playground. This is a project that we've talked about, but the total cost is $136, we think, and grant program requires a 25% match, which is $45,353. Actually, for a total project of $181,413, the grant would provide $136. As you know, we also received a donation from the Teresa Wilson Endowment Fund. Our friend Rick Wilson came a month or two ago and provided that to us, $40,000. We are going to use that money as part of this project as well. Basically, we'll go in and pour a layer of stone, sub base, and this pour and play service will go down and make this playground a lot more accessible, much like Roland Bland, and really excited about this project. They can put in lots of different colors on this stuff, and it's that rubber material. It's very safe, and very excited to get this going. Cross our fingers that we'll get this grant of the tire Crumb Rubber grant, and I'd like to thank Jake Moore for working on this one as well. Jake's here, can answer any of your questions, and we highly recommend pursuing this grant.
Fantastic, fine, quite a grant. Good job, Jake. Questions at this time?
I just want to confirm this is to help make the new smooth surface for the playground? Okay.
Pour-and-play surface for Covington Woods. We would take out the mulch and then return back with this pour-and-place. This is only for surfacing, no additional playground equipment with this project. And as Mr. Mizel said, this is really an FY26 project if approved. The grant is just now, we have to submit the grant application now.
So then it's pieces of these tires, and then it's put together with
It's
a liquid, and then
really
it
an
goes
amazing
solid,
thing.
or?
Yeah, they come out, it's really pieces, if you will, and they kind of smooth it out, and then there's a mixture they have to pour over the top of it, and that's what hardens to make it. And then to get the color, they actually have that mixture. They use different dyes to diagrams and such to give you the cool surfacing colors by all that. But yeah, it's really has to be warm enough to do this. The substance takes some the high temperature at night or the low temperature at night has to be high enough that it formulates.
Thank you.
Right, further questions? None, roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-70.
Municipal order approving an addendum to the Citizen Participation Plan for Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Beasley Brown. Mr. Mizel.
As you all know, we have received a lot of CDBG DR grant money. Whispering Hills, $1.3 million. Habitat for Humanity, Live the Dream, about $2 million for housing. Another Habitat for Humanity affordable housing of $5 million. Chestnut Street Stormwater Sewer project was $3.8 million. And then we got the Umoja International Market Small Business Grant for $17,192 for that small business. Along with this money comes some requirements, restrictions, and one of those is that we have a citizen participation plan in place, and we're here tonight to formally adopt this addendum, the citizen participation plan. It's in your packets. Basically, all projects using these type funds would have a list of things required. You are to provide for and encourage citizen participation. You're to ensure that residents will be given reasonable, timely access to local meetings. You're saying that you're going to furnish citizens information. You're going to provide technical assistance to the groups that are represented, providing public hearings, provide citizens with reasonable advance notice of these projects, and then provide citizens the address, phone number, times for submitting complaints, grievances, all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to thank Nick Cook for watching this and keeping track of it and bringing this to us as part of the 5-year consolidated plan. We need to adopt this tonight as part of an addendum as the citizen participation plan. And Nick, I think, is here. I can't ever see him behind the podium, but he's here, can answer any of your questions on this item. Recommend your approval.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. Those are testaments to incredible accomplishments that you have accomplished on behalf of our city. So thank you for your continued effort and bringing money, other people's money to our community. Questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-71.
Municipal order accepting and ratifying actions of the mayor and executing an agreement with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Housing, Buildings, and Construction related to the granting of additional responsibility for building and electrical permits, plan review, inspections, and enforcement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beasley Brown, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
So for 45 years, we've had this expanded jurisdiction program where our Bowling Green, City of Bowling Green, building electrical inspectors can go out and inspect big projects. And we have an agreement with the state to allow us to do this. The Kentucky Department for Housing, Building, and Construction allows us to take on these inspections and complete them locally with the plan reviews and any and everything that are needed. The only thing that doesn't apply to is listed in your memo in institutional buildings, state licensed facilities, state-owned or leased buildings, and industrialized building systems. But when you really think about it, this has really helped speed up any industrial big project type construction in our area, and has really helped our economic development when you stop and think about it. So recommending another 3 years. We have to re-up this every 3 years, and this item would do that with your approval. Brent Belcher is here. Scott Hunt is here. Our building manager can answer any of your questions on this item.
Okay, thank you, Mizel.
I'm sorry.
Questions at this time? Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-72.
Municipal order approving the Convention Center Management and Catering Agreement between the City of Bowling Green and Atrium Hospitality LP for the Sloan Convention Center.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
I believe this item was discussed at the Convention Center Committee meeting a week or so ago. This is a renewal of the management contract with Atrium Hospitality for the management and catering at the Sloan Convention Center. I'd like to thank Dave Hayner, our CEO of Convention Center, for working on this and helping negotiate the deal. One thing we have changed is we have negotiated for up to 50% discount on some food and catering that we had not had before. And this would be for a 5-year term with a renewal of additional 5 years. And we are recommending your approval. We think it's ready. And Dave is here, can answer any of your questions you might have on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mizel. Questions at this time? Dave, thanks for your work on this. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Municipal order number 2025-73.
Municipal order approving and authorizing out-of-town travel expenses for City Manager Jeff Meisel to attend the Kentucky City County Management Association Winter Conference in Lexington, Kentucky.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
Thank you all for allowing me to attend this. I would recognize that Katie is the president of our KCCMA organization, and she and her teams or committees put on a great conference for us, and it's always a good networking conference and educational as well. We had some really good speakers, and I really appreciate you all allowing me and Katie to attend this, and be glad to answer any questions if you may have.
Mizel. Questions at this time? None. Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Ordinance number BG 2025-4, first reading, non-binding.
Ordinance amending Code of Ordinances. Ordinance amending City of Bowling Green Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Business and General Regulations, Subchapter 15-1 Alarms related to residential permit renewals.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beasley Brown, second by Commissioner Hill. Mr. Mizel.
I'd like to thank Hillary and Sean Weeks and Katie for bringing this to my attention, but for a long time we've had alarm system permits, both for residential and commercial. Residential permits have always been no fee attached. We just want to have a record of them, but we've always required them to come in annually and renew for, it's no charge, but renew. We are proposing to just make that one time, except for any change that might occur in ownership if the house sells or you move or whatever, and new owner wants to continue with that service. And then the second part is we're going to leave the commercial part alone. It's a $15 annual fee that we need to track for dispatch and other reasons for false alarms, that sort of thing. But recommending these tweaks in Chapter 15-106, and we'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have on this, but we're trying to clean it up to how it actually really works, so make it easier on the homeowners and residential alarm permit holders.
Mr. Mizel, questions this time? None. Roll call.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Ordinance number BG 2025-3, second reading, binding.
Ordinance amending Code of Ordinances. Ordinance amending Chapter 4 Alcoholic Beverage Control to amend Subchapter 4-4 Causes for Refusal to Issue or Renew License and for Suspension or Revocation of License to remove Section 4-4.03 Restrictions on Packaged Liquor License of the City of Bowling Green Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Perigin, second by Commissioner Hill. If I recall, I think this was a 3-1 and 1 absent. Further discussion.
Just briefly, Mayor. I agree with what Ms. Hightower said the last time, but the only thing for me that some may say that's different when regulating time, place, or rather than restriction of who can have a license, but the principle is the same. Cities have long had the power to enact regulations that serve the public good, provided that they're reasonable and in furtherance of the community well-being. Now, removing these restrictions entirely have unintended consequences, maybe intended, such as increased density of the liquor store outlets in vulnerable areas, negatively impacting public safety, as I said, stated last time, traffic, and possibly cause new DUIs. So I will still continue to vote no, even though I do agree with Hillary on what she talked about, the home rule on certain parts. But I do think that we possibly should have found a way to have new restrictions that would also work within the state law. So voting no on this to repeal protects the city for me and its ability to regulate its own economic and social landscape that also ensures that the liquor sales remain controlled in a way that benefits our entire city, not just the interests of a few business or the state itself. We know what's best for our city instead of the state. So that's the reason why I voted no before, and I'll vote no again today. But I do agree on certain things that Ms. Hightower has stated the last time.
Okay, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hill.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Bailey.
No.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Alcott.
Yes. Okay, we're going to begin the work session, discuss construction of the stormwater utilities. Are we ready? All right, we're going to begin. Mr. Matt Powell.
Ms. Jackson says I need to wait just 1 second. Are you all able to see the presentation on your screens? Good deal. Okay, so can everyone hear me okay? All right. I want to begin by briefly going through some of the history that establishes the principles of what the City of Bowling Green is doing with regard to our storm sewer system and our stormwater utilities. And I'd like to begin at the very beginning, and that's, of course, the Clean Water Act. The Cuyahoga River Fire of 1969 was an event that occurred wherein the Cuyahoga River had enough hydrocarbon pollution on top of it that a train crossing over a bridge touched some brakes, threw some sparks, and set the river on fire. Now, we love to tell this story because it was one of those watershed moments. This article was written in Time magazine about the Cuyahoga River Fire, and it captured the nation's attention. And a lot of the disparate rules that existed from state to state, region to region, all across the country were consolidated in this windmill process, or this incredibly quick process that established the Environmental Protection Agency, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and then RCRA. I'm not real sure why they broke the chain. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Clean Land Act, but no, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act covers the surface of the earth. All water folks talk about the Cuyahoga River Fire, but we like to talk about it a little bit differently. The Time magazine article in 1969 that discussed the Cuyahoga River Fire is particularly important in the history of clean water, not because the Cuyahoga River Fire or the Cuyahoga River burned in 1969. That was actually, depending on the source, the 13th, 14th, 15th time that the Cuyahoga River burned. As a matter of fact, the Cuyahoga River Fire of '69 actually happened at night, and Time magazine couldn't find any good photographs of it, so the photographs that you'll find in those magazine articles are from 1952. The notable thing about the Cuyahoga River Fire of '69 is it was the last time that the Cuyahoga River burned. So after that, there was a groundswell of effort, the National Environmental Policy Act of 1970, followed by the Environmental Protection Act, excuse me, the founding of the Environmental Protection Agency under Nixon, also in 1970, and then the Clean Water Act in 1972. Now, there's a couple of words on the slide that I want to draw your attention to. The Clean Water Act was an unfunded mandate, and we still use those terms today to talk about the requirements of the Clean Water Act. You can go online right now and you can Google up and you can find a photograph of Richard Nixon signing the Environmental Protection Agency into law. You can find him signing the Clean Air Act into law. You cannot find a photograph of Richard Nixon signing the Clean Water Act into law because he did not. Richard Nixon refused to sign the Clean Water Act because there was no accompanying funding for the impacted entities to be able to pay for the requirements found within the act. It passed into law anyway because it passed Congress with a veto-proof majority. So the Clean Water Act was not actually signed. It became law without the president's participation. The popularity of the act was that high. Initially, the Clean Water Act focused on what we call point source discharges. So if you operated a facility or a factory and you had a waste that was a liquid waste and you needed to get rid of that, and you had a pipe that exited your facility and went into a local waterway of any kind, under the initial Clean Water Act, you'd have been issued a permit. that waste product that you were sending out into the environment, they would identify a standard and say, okay, well, we're not going to allow more than 10 parts per million of methyl ethyl death to be in your discharge anymore. And you would have been issued that permit. You would take samples of your wastewater effluent, your discharge, and try to remain beneath that standard. If we fast forward through the 1970s, 1980s, and into the 1990s, as they're looking at water quality across the United States and saying, okay, we've got a Clean Water Act now, how good of a job are we doing at keeping our nation's waterways clean and everything is prepared and good to go? And they found that there was still a significant portion of the nation's waterways that were very polluted and didn't meet certain standards that we have for primary contact recreation or as drinking water source, different things. And what they discovered as they were looking into this issue is that it wasn't the point source discharges that were necessarily the root of the problem anymore. It's what we call non-point source discharge. And that is pollution that enters our waterways that's built up all across a community or all across an area that's washed away during rain events, ultimately enters the streams and degrades those streams' water quality. Now, if you're the federal government or a state government that has primacy, or even a local government, and you're looking to protect your local waterways through ordinances, regulations, and statutes, but the primary source of the particular pollutant that you're looking for are individual homeowners, are small businesses, are people moving about the community doing their day-to-day operations. There's oil leaks under cars, there's misapplication of fertilizer in lawns and in various places. It's all of these things that build up during dry weather that are then washed away during rain events. If you're that government entity that's trying to be protective of those streams, how on earth can you establish a set of rules that apply to everyone everywhere as they're moving about their daily life? You can't really issue each person in the room a permit and say, okay, well, your car is leaking oil, so we need you to monitor this, that, or the other thing. Their approach was to establish the Stormwater Phase 1 and then the Stormwater Phase 2 rules. And the reason, the logic behind that approach was that the more people are in a smaller space, the more of those pollutants are building up between rain events, and we're going to assign responsibility to those local communities for them to work within their local communities to find out what the serious issues are with regard to water quality, and we're going to assign the responsibility to local communities and local entities and make those folks responsible for their community's discharge of stormwater to make sure that that stormwater is as clean as it can possibly be. And that happened nationally in 1990 and then ultimately in 2000. That resulted in the city of Bowling Green being issued what's called the MS4 permit, or Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permit. I included our permit number up there on the screen, and we got that permit in 2003. That program was stood up with Mr. Jeff Lashley in charge and Melissa Kanzler and some folks that you all know well under Mr. Emmett Wood. That established the city of Bowling Green Stormwater Program, and that's ultimately the program that I inherited later on as we established the Environmental Compliance Division. That permit that's issued by the state of Kentucky, because the state of Kentucky has primacy over the federal EPA here, but it's issued in response to the EPA's demand that the state issue it, says that we have essentially 6 pillars of responsibility with regard to water quality. It's our responsibility to educate the public about the impact that they have on our local water quality. It's our responsibility to involve the public in any way we can to make sure that our waters stay as clean as they possibly can be. It's our responsibility to make illicit discharges illegal and to enforce that illegality. Now, that's a word that we don't run into very often. What an illicit discharge is, and I'm sure you guys have seen that, is when a company or someone who's operating out there in the world maliciously or negligently allows something that isn't stormwater but is harmful to the environment to be released through stormwater. And I'm sure if you think back over the course of the last few years, you can think of a few examples. Next is our construction site management. If you've passed by an active construction site, you've seen the black fencing running along the edge of the area where the disturbed soils are. Sediment's what we call an indicator pollutant. If we see high levels of soil in our stormwater runoff, we tend to see high levels of other pollutants. So we're mandated by this permit that we have folks who go out, work with construction site operators, and make sure that they install what we call best management practices, which are devices or ways of managing a project to make sure that that discharge of soil is minimized to the maximum extent practicable. Earlier tonight, you guys did me a huge service and allowed me to promote someone to be in charge of that program that does a really great job of that program. Moving forward into post-construction water quality, this has been one of the more controversial components of this permit. What this says is that when you create new impervious surfaces, and you guys are going to hear me use that word multiple times tonight, any surface that's a hard surface that rainwater can't soak into. So we're talking about rooftops, asphalt, concrete, driveways, even gravel is almost completely impervious. Those kinds of things that can't soak up any of our rainfall and thus contribute to greater runoff are impervious surfaces, hard surfaces. This program mandated that we work with developers, anyone who built something new, so that if they had more than an acre of disturbance during the construction process and they added more than 10,000 square feet of those new hard surfaces, we were required to make sure that they built something that would treat that stormwater runoff as it left that property and went out into the world, or onto an adjoining property, into a receiving stream, down into the cave system. So that's where that rule comes from. It's out of this MS4 permit. It's one of our 6 pillars. And then finally, good housekeeping. Our final pillar says that the city of Bowling Green should run its operations in exactly the same fashion as we expect from anyone else, that we should take care of our storm sewer system, that we should ensure that it's properly maintained, that it has the right capacity, and that it can serve the community the way that it's supposed to. So that's a permit that we've had in place since 2003, and I've personally had responsibility for our compliance since 2007. And I'll knock on this podium again. Thus far, we have a clean record. Along with that, our storm sewer system itself, and I've had the pleasure of getting to show you guys some of this over the course of the last couple of weeks. But just to reiterate some of the things that you've probably heard me say before, it's massive. The city of Bowling Green is 42 square miles. Inside that 42 square miles, we have about 202 miles of pipes, box culvert, and other buried conveyances. We have 14,000 constructed inlets to allow stormwater runoff into that system. We maintain personally over 1,002, personally meaning us, I'm using the collective we, the city of Bowling Green maintains 1,250 Class 5 injection wells. You've often heard that called a dry well across the city of Bowling Green. That is a responsibility that we also have to report to the federal EPA. That is not the number of dry wells that exist. The number of dry wells that exist is probably more like 3,000. Those are the ones that we've identified we're specifically responsible for. There are over 650 retention and detention basins across the community, well over 1,000 post-construction BMPs that we mentioned just a few minutes ago across around 650 properties. And on top of that, due to the history of the city of Bowling Green, there are untold sinkholes and cave passageways that our community relies on to be able to move stormwater out of our neighborhoods and out to Barron River to keep us from flooding. Because we've developed in that fashion, because as a community, back in 1921, Popular Mechanics had a news article about us that the headline was Bowling Green's million-year-old sewer system. Initially, that was used for both sanitary sewer and stormwater runoff. And essentially, we were claiming then that our cave system was a great benefit to our community because we didn't have to dig and bury pipes and bury channels in order to have a storm sewer system. We are living atop one. And of course, you guys have seen the consequences of that. Occasionally, it collapses, and we have sincere sinkhole issues that we have to deal with. The other thing is, with regard to both our built storm sewer system that we've constructed over the course of this community's history and our natural storm sewer system that is a function of the place that we live, the more the community grows, the more impervious surface we add, the more folks who live in and around Bowling Green, the more stormwater runoff we generate. And both of those systems are becoming undersized. We don't have the capacity in our cave systems, and we don't have the capacity in some of our built systems to be able to move stormwater effectively out of our community. Karst is something that I'm sure you guys hear us say too often, but our system is completely karst dependent. So there are a couple of programs that are out there that can enable our storm sewer system, to enable our stormwater management to kind of meet the future need, to address some present shortcomings, and create a continuous funding source that allows us to become a proactive system that's looking ahead to the future needs of the community and making sure that our system meets our current needs. The first of these we're going to cover is called the fee in lieu of construction. If you can think back to just a few minutes ago, we discussed that under our MS4 permit issued to us by the state as mandated by the federal government, we have a requirement to pass through a demand to developers to construct stormwater treatment systems that are associated with an individual parcel. Now, what a FELOC does is allows those individual parcel developers to contribute a certain amount of funding to a community source. We develop a pool of money, and then ultimately we take advantage of the fact that we can achieve some economy of scale by building larger projects that get that same water quality in places where perhaps the real estate isn't as expensive. So by pooling all of those funds together, we can create the same water quality result for less funding. This is a program that's highly favored by developers because it cheapens the cost of their development. It's right off the top. It's less stuff that they have to buy, less stuff that they have to install. It also doesn't install a particular piece of storm sewer infrastructure on a property that requires annual ongoing maintenance. If these things are functioning properly, they're going to capture litter. They're going to capture sediment. They're going to capture things that are washed away in rainwater. And when that happens, those property owners are responsible for coming back and cleaning those things out. If some feature of the product that's in the ground leaks, and they ultimately have a sinkhole, and the whole kit and caboodle falls off into the sinkhole, it's the property owner who's responsible for going back and making those repairs. So they like it that those things don't have to be there. They can build smaller, more simple storm sewer systems on their developments while we're building the water quality aspect somewhere else. So they get the real estate back, they don't have the long-term maintenance, and they have a lower development cost. So this is something that our community is really looking for. The issue becomes is that when you take a look at the life cycle cost of this kind of storm sewer infrastructure, it's difficult to establish a fee that's both reasonable for the property owner and reasonable for the city to accept that long-term maintenance. FELOC needs to be underpinned by some other funding source that can continue to care for it as time drags on. So that's why we're going to discuss stormwater utilities as we move forward. Briefly, to run back kind of through what our structure, proposed structure for this looks like. The photograph that you have over on the right, that's an example, a cartoon example clearly, of what the kind of storm sewer infrastructure that we're talking about is. That's a separating baffle box. Water comes in, stormwater comes in from some new development. It has to pass through a series of baffles that cause the water to move in certain ways that allows sediment to fall out, and it's got trash screens at the top that will catch cups and bottles and that sort of thing. So as that fills up from rain event to rain event, that's got to be cleaned out. That's something that person has to manage. The FELOC itself would only apply to the exact same projects that are currently required to develop this sort of storm sewer infrastructure. And that is projects that are greater than 1 acre and add more than 10,000 square foot of new impervious surfaces. The fees would apply to the total parcel being developed. For residential projects, we're proposing to match Warren County exactly. Warren County's current start rate is $571.73. And we are making a bit of a change to that. That's Warren County subdivisions tend to be larger lots, more pervious area, whereas once you get inside the city of Bowling Green, the lots tend to become smaller. So it's a bit of a sliding scale. So the entry point for residential development, talking about subdivisions, is that 571.73, the exact same as Warren County. The maximum amount would be for a 75% impervious subdivision, very, very, very small lot size, homes very, very close together, would be 17, 15, 19 per acre. And that's just a one-to-one sliding scale between 25% and 75%. That's the minimum and maximum. For the commercial projects, the proposed fee is $10,500 per acre. And to give a sense of scale as to how many projects this would impact, we looked at calendar year 2024. This would have impacted 31 projects across the city of Bowling Green. Now, to dig into that commercial cost just a little bit more, we took a generic example of a 1 1/4 acre retail type establishment. If you take a look at that right now, we're estimating a design cost of around $7,500. There are some folks in the room, by the way, who I think could correct my figures on this. I think they would mostly correct them up. And he's shaking his head very much. You're looking at a design cost of more than $7,500. Water quality unit around $27,500. We're basing that on a recent quote that we got for one of our own facilities. Installation costs of around $5,000 to $10,000, and of course annual maintenance, we figured that at about $2,000 a year over the next 30 years, which is about the lifespan. So at a minimum, and like I said, I have some folks in the room who I think are going to say that my costs are a little low. You're looking at a construction cost of around $40,000 and a lifetime total cost of $100,000 for a 1.25 acre retail development. The fee in lieu of construction program would allow that developer to contribute to a pool in the amount of $13,125. And that's going to pass that money over to the city of Bowling Green. We pool those monies together, and then we try to reach economy of scale. We try to find cheaper land, and we can construct water quality that will take the place of this water quality and basically balance that whole system out while we're providing a lot of advantages to the developer and a lot of advantages to the community too. We're reaching a point where there are so many of these things on so many different properties that we're very hard pressed to be able to look at them once every 5 years, which is sometimes if folks are not keeping up with what they need to keep up with, by the time 5 years have elapsed, some of these things are in terrible shape. And when we get back to them, they haven't been doing anything for water quality. It's been discharging basically whatever comes into it for quite a while. And once again, want to touch on that this can't stand alone. We can't replace that $100,000 life cycle cost with a $13,000 fee. This is replacing the construction of water quality somewhere else. We need to be able to plan for the future with regard to the program and support and continue to maintain and keep those things going. The way that we're proposing to handle that, among some other issues, is the establishment of a stormwater utility. The big distinction here is with a FELOC, a fee in lieu of construction, that is only applicable to those specific new projects that meet those two criteria that we discussed. A stormwater utility is a fee that's applied to everyone within the community, businesses and residential, that generates funding that the city then uses to maintain its water quality aspects, maintain its MS4 compliance, all of those 6 pillars, as well as the natural and built infrastructure that we're using to make sure that we handle stormwater runoff. Now, super quick, and this is just a tough one. Occasionally we have terms of art or technical jargon, those kinds of things. I only need you guys to learn one new one. And that term is what we call an equivalent residential unit. In this case, what we're trying to establish is what roughly is the amount of impervious surface on an average homeowner's lot. And we've arrived at a number of about 3,100 square feet. But simply what you can think of, and that's roughly, what, 40 by 50, 50 by 60? Yeah, right around 50 by 60. Area of impervious surface. So in your head, whenever I say ERU, you can just think of an area, length by width, of surface on the earth that will not allow stormwater to penetrate down into it. So 1 ERU is the equivalent of 1 homeowner's worth of impervious surfaces. And you use that number to establish the rate at which someone will pay into the stormwater utility that then is providing some of the services that we're going to talk about. Now, our proposed rate matches Warren County precisely in terms of the rate itself. 1 ERU would equal $4 per month for any residential user of our storm sewer services. Those services are, when it rains, we provide the infrastructure that makes sure that that rainwater runoff has somewhere to go and you're not getting flooded out, and we're returning that stormwater runoff to the environment as clean as we possibly can. For a commercial user, that ERU becomes a multiple. So for a commercial user, if they have 100,000 square feet, you would divide that 100,000 square feet by 3,100, and that's going to give you the number of ERUs that they have, and then you multiply that by the rate. We'll work our way through some examples as we move forward. We've also set this one up so that it's got some discounts. Before I move on, that ERU would be billed exactly the same as Warren County's existing stormwater utility as part of the water bill. We would work with BGMU and Warren County Water District in order to be able to receive those funds, and of course there is a cost associated with working with those entities to manage that portion of the program. Now, super quickly, exemptions and discounts. There's opportunities here for property owners to lower their stormwater fee based on the kinds of things that they do with their storm systems. So with appropriately designed and constructed drainage basins, which basically hold back some stormwater runoff and allow that to come out at a later time, If those things meet our city standards, we're proposing that 20% per each discount on top of the stormwater utility fee. And then there's additional discounts for excess provisions. So if you build a basin that can hold back more water, let's say you have a particular site that lends well to what you're trying to accomplish, and you can provide an additional 20% storage on that lot, and you'd like to do that in order for the stormwater utility fee moving forward to be cheaper, then that's an opportunity for you to do that. Your maximum discount, if you were to do every single thing up there, is 60%. So if you provide city drainage, if you treat that city drainage, if you provide excess in terms of our standards of drainage, and you provide excess treatment, you can get all the way to 60% off of the monthly stormwater utility fee. Does that make sense? All right, so a couple of quick things. We threw a chart up, and we wanted to talk about how we arrived at the things we arrived at. Right out of the gate, 3,100 square feet. This chart shows all of the stormwater utilities across the state of Kentucky, as well as the national averages. There are 14 existing utilities in the state of Kentucky. The 3,100 square feet, you'll notice on those bottom two lines, is right in the national and state average. And you'll see that ranges from 2,500 up to 6,000 in the state of Kentucky. That $4 fee also falls in the just below the average. We're 79 cents cheaper than the state average and $2.19 cheaper than the national average. And then if you go ahead and extrapolate those numbers into a 1 acre commercial site at 5621, we are also well below the average for the state and the nation with regard to that. For instance, there's a couple of different things that are going to be moving you back and forth. Number one, the size of the ERU that a community has selected and the rate. So both of those can move your total monthly bill. So I wanted to put together a little bit of an extra piece as I was looking at this earlier today. If we took, for example, a 20,000 square foot commercial example, inside the city of Bowling Green, 20,000 square feet would be 6.5 ERUs, resulting in a fee of $25.81 per month. Take a look at LFUCG. With their differently sized ERU standard, it's actually going to be 8 ERUs plus their higher rate. That same exact development in Lexington, the fee would be $42.96 per month. And if you move to Louisville, it's also 8 ERUs, and with their fees, that same is $88.88 per month. So an identical development with 20,000 square feet in Bowling Green, $25.81. In Lexington, $42.96, and in Louisville, $88.88. Make sense to everyone? So some examples of here in Bowling Green. We looked at several facilities. These are actual real facilities. We've left the names off. But taking a look at them. Now, the pre and post 2008, any of these facilities that were built after 2008 are going to have water quality associated with them, and that's going to provide a discount. So if you take a look over into that 4th column down, you'll see, Nick, help me with this chart. What was ID? Implemented drainage and water quality for the WQ. So that's taking a look at which of these projects are going to get a discount and then what that discount equates to. So for an industrial facility after 2008, which means it's going to have some water quality, and the lot size is 50.6 acres with a little over 1,000,001 square feet of impervious surface, that's going to work out to be 361 ERUs. You're going to apply a couple of discounts that get that to a 40% discount, and finally arrive at a monthly fee of about $866.40. Compare that with a large chain store pre-2008 that does not provide any of its own water quality. Now you're at 26 acres, about 800,000 square feet of impervious surface, but because they don't get quite as much of a discount, their fee is going to be fairly similar at $838.40. And that's some of the top end of the scale kind of stuff. To look at some more stuff that's a little more common, you might see a small strip mall after 2008 at 1.46 acres that is getting a water quality discount but does not have its own drainage system. You're going to see the 20% discount applied. Something like that's going to be a monthly fee of $59.20. Moving on down, a couple of small chain stores, one just under an acre, one at a half an acre. Looking at the impervious square footage of those two things, One of them is getting an implemented drainage discount, the other one isn't, $27.20 or $26. That's kind of how those fees are going to shake out in the real world when you start looking at actual scenarios. And of course, for individual residences, we're going to be looking at that standard residential fee of $4. So the utilization, what are the kinds of things that we're going to do with this funding? That funding is going to be dedicated to infrastructure assessment and repairs, a thorough assessment of all of our storm sewer system, and to the greatest extent that we can, our naturally occurring storm sewer system, to identify critical failures, identify areas where we're undersized, inform future planning, and fund critical needs now. So it's repair and rehabilitation and replacement of this storm sewer system that we have, as well as a look ahead and say that if this is the way our city has grown over the course of the last 50 years, the last 25 years, the last decade, what sort of storm sewer infrastructure do we need to provide so that we can meet the needs of our community in the next 10 years, the next 25 years, the next 50 years? In addition, that fee can cover the cost of our existing MS4 compliance, those other 5 pillars that we talked about that we need to provide in order to be able to meet that permit need. We can create, that of course will create capacity in the general fund as those current costs are moved over to the stormwater utility side. And of course, it allows us to support the fee in lieu of construction so that that program can also move forward and be implemented. All of these things working in concert move a lot of existing cost out to a new funding source and provide what we talked about a while ago, which is a dedicated funding source that is predictable and recurrent so that our program can begin to look ahead and plan for the community's future. So thank you for listening to all of that. I'd like to pause for any questions that you have. And of course, our ultimate final ask is, with your approval, we'd like to present you with a revised ordinance and the necessary supporting documentation to implement these 2 programs at our earliest available opportunity. And with that, Nick Lawhon is here with me, Director Souza is here with me, and we'd like to address any questions or concerns that you have.
I have a question, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think most of our folks are going to be concerning themselves with residential.
Absolutely.
So I have a house in Mount Air, and it's huge and sprawling. And it's a $2 million home. I'm going to pay the same fee there as I would to have a house in Shawnee.
Yes, ma'am. So that's why we established that residential user, and we're using that average. Of course, some of the homes are going to be tremendously large and they're going to contribute some more. And there are some homes that are going to be at the very, very small end of the scale that are going to contribute way less. And some are going to be right there in the middle. It is a function of the mathematics. There's absolutely going to be an end to the range and a lower end to the range. We've set that residential fee to match Warren County, and we think we've set that residential fee low enough so that it's achievable for any local resident, and we're confident that we're going to provide $4 a month in service to anyone, regardless of the size of that residence.
Hypothetically, I'm a developer. Developers out there, costs are exorbitant. They're trying to, develop housing. And how does a developer perceive this, going in when they still have to have, all the runoff mitigation, in preparation? How does that help them? I don't quite follow.
So when we talked about the fee in lieu of construction, it is that they don't have to plan for quality. They don't have to provide treatment. They don't have to have those hydrodynamic separators. The basin designs become simpler. Basins that are constructed for the purpose of establishing water quality have features that aren't in simple stormwater volumetric basins. There's a tremendous amount of savings for a developer, both residential and commercial, when they can defer that storm water quality work to that pool of money where it's going to be created somewhere else, as opposed to having to build it on their individual lot, as well as they get some of their real estate back. Those hydrodynamic separators, those water quality basins, we have a whole manual. It's got a couple hundred pages on how to accomplish this sort of thing. All of those things take up space, and that's all space that comes back to the developer. They get that back. So you're right. From a quantity perspective, you still have to provide a pipe, you still have to provide a head wall, you still have to provide a basin. But from a quality perspective, there's a massive savings for developers to be able to participate in a fee in lieu of construction.
So have you floated this with developers, and what are some of their perceptions?
We absolutely have, and to my knowledge, we have had no negative response to this. It has been 100% positive response. The local Builders Association has written a letter in support. Just in discussion, and of course we've been in the news a little bit lately with some of the work that we've done getting ready to have this working session, some folks in the industry have heard and have reached out to us and offered to come and support. I think a couple of them have actually come in support of this measure tonight. If there are development folks who have anything negative to say about the FELOC program or the stormwater utility, they have not made that known to us.
With that in mind, are you going to give a window of opportunity? I have had developers reach out to me in support of this. Are you going to, is this a time for the other developers, if they don't agree, to get in contact with you, and if so, how?
Of course, yeah, we never want to be heavy-handed about anything that we're doing. All of the things that we're doing are for the betterment of the community of Bowling Green and for the people that live here. They can absolutely reach out to us through any of the city's phone numbers. We have a forward-facing website, and our email address is super easy. We are stormwater@bgky.org. And we'd love to hear from anyone, both in for or against of what we've proposed here tonight.
Can this be given in options? For instance, can it be phases, one for, private property, one for commercial property, and one for developers in lieu of creating? To me, there seems to be a one-size-fits-all, solution to put everything on our plate to make a decision universally for all these. However, there could be a crawl, walk, run, phase, because we've gone from 0 to 100. So we don't have to go exactly to 100. And so if I'm looking at this holistically, and we all are, to me, I'd like options if we're going to propose this as a way forward.
So in terms of the implementation as stormwater utility and FELOC together, you'd like to have one and then the other?
Right. Option one could be as you're presenting. Option two could be, hybrid of that in phases. I'm giving
Absolutely.
feedback. We're digesting a lot of information.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're making this, a determination on the way forward for big issues. And, the homeowners and the businesses are going to say, we've been existing. The real lean in is those that are in the current development because of the high cost of that development. But those that are in the, the post, their decision is not my problem at this minute.
Right. And I think that we'll actually see some folks on the commercial side who have stormwater quality devices on their sites who are going to elect to join the FELOC and remove those devices to be able to free up space and move forward. So if I understand you correctly, could we do FELOC, and then could we perhaps do the residential side of the stormwater utility and then perhaps the commercial, or some other variation of that sequence?
I'm looking at options.
Sure.
Rather than just one option one size fits all. Can there be options in this presentation that we can digest?
Absolutely. Working across city departments, this is what we brought to you all is a nationwide standard. There are a lot of other communities who face the same challenges that we're facing, and this is a pretty tried and true mechanism for meeting that challenge with regard to funding. And as we discussed, FELOC really needs the support of some other funding mechanism to come along with it, but absolutely, there are as many ways to generate revenue for city programs as I imagine that everyone in this room could propose, and I would absolutely work with Katie and with Jeff and others to examine those other potential funding mechanisms, but honestly, they're a little outside of my purview. Stormwater utility fees, fee in lieu of construction, I can speak to you guys about those for the rest of the day. Alternative funding mechanisms, I'd have to defer to these folks.
And Mayor, just a question, Matt. So would you agree or disagree it's a faster stand-up for FELOC versus the utility fee? I think it would take a little while to get billing kind of built up in place with our utilities and get that set up as far as how that's going to be billed and collected. And then, but the FELOC would be a quicker stand-up. Will you agree or disagree?
Absolutely agree. I think any change to our stormwater management manual that is at that level would require an ordinance change to support it. So that would require 2 readings from you folks. But essentially, with the fee in lieu of construction, the establishment of the dollar amount of that fee is dependent upon the other resources that can support it. So what we have arrived at with regard to that fee is we think we can replace the capital cost of stormwater quality unit construction for this amount of money, but not the continuing maintenance cost. And so that's where the utility comes in and support. So establishing that cost amount, knowing that the utility's right behind it, that's where we're at. If we can agree to say, okay, then you can count on this much support for the FELOC moving forward, you know, we know that there's going to be this amount of funding for it, and we can predict what that continuing cost is going to be for us, then yes, we can absolutely set that FELOC fee, and we could have that going in 2 more meetings.
Mayor,
So that's absolutely true.
So Mayor, were you thinking something like FELOC 1 fiscal year, next fiscal year you bring in commercial, in the following fiscal year you bring in residential, or something to that effect?
I was
or?
thinking, 1, let's look at options, and what are those options? And I understand there's, you know, setback on, you know, will the structure as proposed, you know, be able to sustain itself? I think that's the point you're making, right, Matt? If we were not to do all of this as start today and do this tomorrow, that there may be sustainment dollars that are not going to reconcile this program.
Right. What I've made a career of doing is not setting the city up for failure. It's my job to know about the things that you expect me to know about, and to do the best job that I can for you guys to be able to provide for the community the best that we can. If we were to establish a FELOC fee too low and launch a FELOC program without a continuing funding mechanism to support that ongoing maintenance, we might find ourselves in a situation where we haven't generated enough funding to both build that alternative water quality and sustain it. And then, you know, if we basically 1-to-1 that water quality that we need, and I go out and I build an extensive, you know, water quality treatment basin that's going to have a pretty high cost to maintain from year to year, but I haven't also planned for that maintenance, then I feel like I may be setting us up for failure.
I was going to ask you this, because I know you said that under the FELOC, that basically that there's not going to be no annual maintenance, ongoing maintenance for the developers. Am I wrong to believe that?
So the annual maintenance for the developers is they'll be participants in the stormwater utility. So that property, once it's been developed, they'll be participating in the stormwater utility. If they choose not to have any quality, or they choose not to implement extra drainage on their lot, then they'll see less discounts, and they'll actually contribute a little bit more to that stormwater utility. So in that regard, yes, they are going to continue for that ongoing maintenance.
That answered mine. So that FELOC is not a one-time fee and the developers are done. That business is going to keep paying a fee.
Well, I apologize. It is a one-time fee. It is a deferment for that piece of property. But that development, so for instance, we're going to build a widget factory, and the widget factory comes in, they pay the FELOC, so that exempts them from the water quality aspects. They construct the remainder of their storm sewer system. Once that's built, let's say it's 2 acres, then that 2-acre project is going to be contributing to the stormwater utility. And so in that regard, yes, they will be continuing to contribute
So
to
they're
those
still putting money in this pot.
Right. The FELOC does not remove them from the utility. It only removes them from that initial construction of those extra pieces.
This brings me to my second thing then. What if the original developer, they sell it or something, or they're no longer here? What happens to the ongoing, kind of like what Commissioner Hill was saying, the ongoing basically, you know.
That property
coming
will
up with it?
continue to be a participant in the utility. The utility fee will still apply to that property as it moves forward. In terms of, we'll need to write a couple of paragraphs in this policy that really break down the nitty-gritty of a land use change or a property use change to see whether or not the FELOC fee would apply a second time to the same parcel. But I really can only see that in the circumstance where whatever, we pay the FELOC fee, we build the widget factory, and then 10 years later, we completely remove everything. We bulldoze the site back to Pear Earth, and then we're going to go with a new land use and a completely new facility. In that circumstance, the FELOC fee would apply again.
See, and that's the reason why I wanted clarification, because I wanted to make sure that we don't have something like Whispering Hills again, where it could be something so big as opposed to the developers who basically make an agreement to come and make sure that they're gonna maintain the maintenance and stuff, that they're gonna rely on the city at some point, and to make sure that we fix the issue as opposed to them maintaining it in some way.
Right. We're not proposing a change into what constitutes private storm sewer systems versus public storm sewer systems. The change is simply going to be as to what level of private storm sewer system you're required to build, with the exception, of course, of residential. In residential development, once that development is complete, that enters the city's acceptance process. Melissa's staff inspect that, make sure that everything is squared away, properly cared for, properly constructed, and we accept that into city maintenance, and that becomes a part of our infrastructure. But that's only for residential development.
You know, am I also correct to believe that you talked about 1921 and they put it in the magazine?
Sir.
But they basically, some of the issues that we have in the current stormwater systems that we have is what's causing some of the sinkholes that's going around town.
Absolutely.
Maybe not all, but
yeah,
some.
Those things are sinkhole drivers. When you see, one of the things that I've addressed, and actually Mr. Dobbs here wanted to catch a look at some of the things that we looked at today, so we went back in there for a quick jaunt today. One of the things that his group was really impressed with that we were talking about is no one designed Whiskey Run. No one took our single largest continuous storm sewer system and said, this is the size of the community that's going to be draining to this point, and this is how big this pipe needs to be. Whiskey Run is the size that it is because it was an existing ditch line that at some point someone lined the bottom of it with concrete, and then, you know, of course, in a stream, we're going to have the banks laid back like this. Over time, somebody said, well, I'd like to have a little bit bigger building. I need that stream to be a little narrower, and they built vertical sidewalls. And then fast forward to another person at another time, and they said, well, I really would need a parking lot over the top of that, and concrete tops were eventually put on it. So Whiskey Run is the size that it is because that's the size that it was. It has not been designed to meet the needs of our community, and it certainly hasn't been designed to meet the needs of our growing community. Mr. Souza came here from parts elsewhere and was not as familiar with cave and karst systems as those of us who grew up here. And he asked me one of the most pertinent questions I've been asked in the last couple of years. We're very proud of our reliance on the cave system. We're very proud of our uniqueness. It gives Nick and I plenty of things to talk about at professional conferences, the way we handle storm sewer runoff in karst systems. Mr. Souza said, what do we do when it's not big enough anymore? How do you know when the cave's full? And I said, oh, well, we already see that on Russellville Road near Logistics Court. We already see that near 6th Street. And I identified places where we already know that those naturally occurring karst pathways are too small. They're smaller than our design storm, and when those cave systems are completely full of water, that extra rainwater runoff has to sit on top of the earth and wait for room to go down into the cave system. I know we catch a lot of grief, and it is a private property issue, as we've discussed many times, but the recurring flooding that occurs on Fairview, I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with it, that is precisely what's happening there. That cave system is completely full, and that water that's in the parking lot is waiting for room to go into the cave system. So all that water's got to make its way through that karst, out into the Barren River, and then the rest of it can kind of come in behind it as it goes. So he's exactly right. As we grow, and we don't know exactly when, we are going to outgrow both our natural and our built storm sewer systems. And over the course of my career, and I'm pretty confident over the course of the 10 or 20 years before that, we've only constructed storm sewer infrastructure coincident to street construction, coincident to subdivision construction, or in response to a flooding or a need for rehabilitation or repair. We have constructed our storm sewer system in response to the community's needs at the time. I'm unaware of a time when the city of Bowling Green has had the opportunity to sit and say, what do we need in 10 years? What do we need in 25 years? And that's what we're hoping to provide with these two programs, is that ability to look ahead and to make sure that we're provided for, with or without the caves, to support us.
Back to the widget factory and the FELOC. The widget factory is going gangbusters. They've got to add on another same size factory. How does that affect the FELOC?
All on the same parcel?
Yeah.
There would be a FELOC that would be identical to the first for the addition of the extra impervious surface.
Additions will trigger that again.
Yes, so long as they meet our two criteria. And we would have to make sure that we're not, and I'm so sorry, Katie, I know there's an example in structured. I know that there's an issue when you're depositing funds that you can't structure those funds so that you don't trigger certain. We have the exact same thing in the stormwater world when we take a look at those and we say, okay, you can do 10,000 square feet. You also cannot structure so that you do 9,000 square feet this year, 9,000 square feet next year, 9,000 square feet the year after. We call that the common plan of development to keep that from happening. But so long as the new infrastructure also met the triggers, then yes, it would trigger a new FELOC.
Thank you so much for just making sure we're all learning about, the hidden parts of the ways that we take care of our city. And I'm just really grateful for the whole team that is, helping make sure our stormwater gets where it goes and is treated so that we can make sure that we are healthy and safe. My first question is, and you just touched on it just now, but especially downtown or in other areas, when we're seeing it rains and there's rivers going down the street, that's because the cave system is flooded, or sometimes it's just getting to our storm sewer system.
It can be a little bit of both of those things. We've talked in the past about the fact that we don't have a continuous drainage system that covers the entire community. Often that it's a disparate or a piecemeal system that's carrying stormwater drainage to the nearest karst feature that can take it. So we may have a series of pipes that are just moving water to a nearby sinkhole. So yes, when we talk about flooding, for instance, a street flooding all the way across, the science word for that is pluvial flooding, rain-driven flooding just superficially at the surface. It is one of those two reasons. The cave system is too full, and so therefore no more water can go in. But like we also talked about, we've a little bit outgrown our britches with some of these storm sewer systems that were built as needed over the years and they haven't been expanded. It can also be the storm sewer system itself that's completely charged, and so it can't accept any more runoff. And so, for instance, College Street, some of us have seen that over the course of years where the water flows right over the top of the inlets and just keeps going. And keeps amassing as it moves down through there. In some of those circumstances, it was because we had a clog, and in some of those circumstances, it's been because those pipes in the ground aren't large enough to allow that water to come in. And so if it's not, the water in the pipe doesn't get out of the way, no more water can come into the inlet. So it can be either or both of those things.
So if we were to implement a plan like this, what's the type of visual benefit or improvements might we see as citizens if we had the funds to kind of do some of the repair work we wanted to, or will we not notice because it's all underground that we're doing?
We like to use the phrase that we bury our best work. If Nick and Courtney and Matt and I do the very best job that we can possibly do, none of you all will ever see it again. So the kinds of things that the community can expect from that is our ability to address those persistent pluvial flooding issues across town, our ability to create storm sewer infrastructure that can handle the future growth of the community. So for every subdivision that comes in, for every new development, those folks are looking at, okay, what's my stormwater runoff looking like? There's an engineer who's going to look at the downstream capacity of that system and say, it's going to cost too much to develop in this particular area because the city only has a 24-inch pipe over there. So if you want to completely cover this lot with concrete so that you can build multifamily residential or a widget factory, you're going to need to upgrade the downstream storm sewer system so that it can accept the water that you're going to give it. So in those circumstances, we can look ahead and say, yep, we know that this area of our community is going to grow, this area of our community is going to grow, and we're at capacity or near capacity with our storm sewer system. We need to be looking at capital projects over the next 3 to 5 years to create the capacity in that area to meet that growth demand. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So one of the concerns we get quite often are neighborhoods or neighbors that are concerned about new development and about the water of the new impervious surfaces, how that might run onto their property and cause flooding on their own property. So if you can clarify one more time, so we are not, this FELOC doesn't mean that this new factory or new place doesn't mean that now we're allowing their water to run wherever it goes. Explain it one more time so folks know that that's not what you're saying.
I appreciate the opportunity to provide that clarity. Neither of these programs will absolve anyone of responsibly creating the infrastructure necessary to carry our design standard storm. So the storm sewer piping, retention, and detention basins that have been required in Bowling Green since the 1960s, those will remain. You still must account for how much water you're moving into the system. The FELOC program allows you to pass the buck, essentially, to the city with regard to the quality of that water. And essentially what we're going to be doing is, yep, you guys go ahead and build your storm infrastructure, you push that water downstream, we're going to find a place to intercept it before it gets to the Barron River or to Drakes Creek or to Jennings Creek, and we're going to provide that treatment somewhere else.
And so if we kind of thinking through this piecemeal implementation, if we implement a FELOC and say something happens and then we don't provide that sustainable funding source, what happens to our water quality?
I'd like to think that, that we would figure something out. I just don't have any idea what it looks like. So in your scenario, have I built the alternative water quality devices? Or
No,
I
because we
have
didn't
not
have the
built?
money, right? Or we would.
Okay, so we didn't generate enough funding. So I've allowed a lot of people to come into the FELOC, but I haven't generated enough funding to build the replacement. In that circumstance, we've got real issues with our MS4 permit compliance. And that's the circumstance where we would be looking to the state and saying, we've absolved the individual developer, and this, not absolved, but we've reached an agreement with the individual developer wherein they've contributed to a pool of funding, and we have failed to meet our requirement to create the water quality that they contributed for us to create. In that circumstance, I'm going to have to go to the state with our MS4 program and say we're not meeting one of our 6 pillars, which is MCM5, and then work our way through that compliance issue. Historically, in the state of Kentucky, I'm aware of 2 times when the compliance from a community was so far out of line with the standards that there were penalties from the state. There's been some small ones for small communities across the state, but for communities our size and for a departure from the standard of that size, the city of Lexington entered into an agreed order in 2008-9 with regard to failure to meet the post-construction water quality standard, and that was a $400,000 agreed order, a $400,000 penalty. They paid a $400,000 fine, and they agreed to create, I have forgotten how many millions. I don't want to give you a number that's wrong, but it was several $1 million worth of capital construction to meet the standard that they had thus far failed to meet. So they paid a $400,000 penalty and then agreed to create what they're called SEPs, supplemental environmental projects, to the tune of several millions of dollars in order to meet that standard. And they had a 10-year timeline. So when that, I think they just rolled out of that in 2018, 2019, just before COVID, but the state said, you're going to do this. This is how you're going to do this. You're going to pay the $400,000 penalty on top, and we're going to watch you over the course of the next 10 years until you're done. Similarly, the city of Louisville also got a fine from the state. I think theirs was $350,000, or maybe it was $300,000 for a similar infraction, and that one there were no supplemental environmental projects, but Louisville was able to fund essentially the missing infrastructure that they needed to have created after the fact. So Louisville agreed voluntarily to do the thing that they hadn't done and paid the $300,000 penalty. So that would be a process. If we weren't able to meet our commitments to MCM5 of our MS4 permit, that would put me in a position I've never been in before, which is substantial noncompliance, and I would have to work with our state agencies to figure out what our path forward would look like. And I'm sure you guys would immediately let me go and find someone better qualified.
That would be a bad thing, Matt. That would be bad.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it stand to reason if you have a program that needs something else to stand it up, to make it, that you would find that something else, that supplemental funding, before you would put in a FELOC?
Right, that's why.
I mean, just common sense says, you got to figure out how you're going to support this FELOC, so you should do that first, and then the FELOC part.
The FELOC, with the stormwater utility, the FELOC is a very easy add. So that's why we're asking to bring them together. But you're exactly right.
Doesn't that make sense, guys? You would want to find the thing that's going to make the FELOC last, instead of putting you and everybody else in a really precarious situation. If the bottom fell out and we couldn't, find the money to support it,
Exactly.
we were in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that's purely conjecture on my part. I don't have any idea precisely what would happen in our circumstance with those criteria, but those are the closest two examples that I could think of. But you're exactly right. With the supporting program, the FELOC is very, very easy. It's a simple add-on. That's why we've asked to do the two together.
But if you all decide to move forward with this, it needs to be a package. And you could have different implementation dates or effective dates and when these things happen, whether you have an effective date for the utility fee first with a lagging effective date for a FELOC, something like that would gradually bring it in, phase it in, build it up, slowly turn the spigot on, so to speak. We could look at that if that's something you all would want to pursue. But I think you make a good point, Commissioner, that establishing your revenue stream to support your capital program, which is very, very heavy, as you all probably saw in some of your tours, I think that could be worked out. So, but it's got to be a package, as Matt said. The timing can be different, but it needs to be packaged together.
But it doesn't have to be a fee. It doesn't have to be a fee. There's other ways to look at things, potentially funding sources that aren't necessarily a fee.
And I would be well outside my area of expertise to speak to.
And I appreciate that, because that's, you know, I've shared a couple ideas with the mayor and Jeff that might be worth looking at.
Absolutely.
The issue with stormwater projects is, yes, they are, you could bond them, issue bonds, and issue debt to fix these things, but the timing of construction is so stretched out, it doesn't really match up well with restrictions you have with a bond issue sometimes with construction phase. So we've looked at that too as far as a funding source. But
I guess in my brain, I was thinking we got an EV battery company coming. I'm going to say this out loud. Probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. But it has 2,000 employees. It's got occupational tax associated with it. That'll go on. Why not earmark, you know, a certain amount of that to fund something like this?
I don't want to speak for everyone, but it seems like I'm hearing, I personally don't have a problem with the FELOC. I don't know how everyone else feels, but it's the other piece of it I'm struggling with.
Ma'am.
When we're hitting our citizens up. So I think, in listening to Commissioner Perigin, what are other ways we can find that funding? I will admit, we need it. Been underground, we need, and you all need the funding for it. But where else can we get it? I would love
now
to
we're
look.
having a conversation over here.
Yes, would love to look for other opportunities.
This is, of course, the reason that this program is the one that we brought to you is it is across the nation the mechanism that city after city after city has used to address pretty much the exact same, with the exception of the cave issue, the exact same issues that we're having right now. Community after community has gone with this method, and there's a lot of history, there's a lot of background, there's a lot of programs we can build off of, there's a lot of information out there. We can understand this quickly, we can implement this quickly, and from a legal standpoint, we're well supported because this exists already. And like I said before, we would become the 15th in the state of Kentucky. We're by no means going to break new ground, and we'd be the second one inside Warren County. Everywhere in Warren County already resides in a stormwater utility, with the exception of the residents of the city of Bowling Green.
I'll just speak to the funding. I don't want to convolute this any more than it can be convoluted. Not that you have done that, Matt. You've done a great job. But for example, our 911 center is mostly supported by city taxpayer dollars, yet it serves a greater, broader population of people traveling through and to from Bowling Green. So, you know, we can't, we've looked at how we change that, whether we tack on a fee for a 911 you know, to help support, because the general fund heavily subsidizes the 911 center. So when we looked at this, we thought the broadest base you can create is to bill every individual on their water bill. You got a lot of water bills with multifamily. When we're 37% home-owned percentage now, and we're mostly multifamily and rental, you have to find a way to capture, you know, make it fair for everybody. And we thought the water bill was the fairest of procedures to collect money toward this program. We looked at property tax bills, but when you look at property tax bills, we're only got 23,000, and you're taxing a whole plot of apartment development or whatever. So we thought this would create the broadest base to spread the load as evenly as possible when it comes to collection. So, but, you know, I kind of compare this to 911. We've looked at, you know, how do we cover that subsidy that the general fund is absorbing every year, because we only get 70 cents on a cell phone bill for 911 now, and landlines are pretty much gone. Nobody has a landline. We used to get 68 cents on those, but that's a dying revenue stream that we've lost for 911. So when we look at different revenue streams, we looked at the water bills and we thought that would be the best route. It's what everybody else has kind of gone with. Katie?
I mentioned the 14th in the Kentucky, 2,135 stormwater utilities across the country, and just a small append to what you said. With the commercial ERU, it scales with demand. So a very, very small parcel of land with a small business on it has a relatively low fee because they don't place near as much as demand on the system. A very, very large and complex facility without a lot of discounts has a higher fee because they have a higher demand on the system. They generate more runoff. So the fee scales with the demand on the system.
I was just going to respond, to your question in terms of, or statement that maybe AESC could contribute toward that. That money is already spoken for. It is paying the debt that we issued for the Transpark for the next 20 years. So that is already earmarked for that. And again, all of what's in the Transpark essentially is what is paying for that debt, that $45 million that we issued in 2021. When it comes to other funding, as the city manager pointed out, we have a lot of demand, we have a lot of needs. The 911 center is a significant need to continue to utilize general fund money. With this particular program, because it can support itself over time, it frees up funding from the general fund, which could then be utilized for more capital projects and other needs that we have across the city as well.
Is there a way, and I apologize, but it sounds like that there probably will be maybe some hesitation right now from many of us right now. Is there a way that if we brought it back and possibly like what the mayor has suggested earlier, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months just to have some type of options to figure out a way to get it funded, but also to figure out a way where maybe our citizens may not necessarily be hit with the fee.
I agree. That's where I'm struggling, is with our citizens. That it sounds like no matter what the size of the house, no matter what the income level is, citizens are going to pay the same fee. Is that accurate, as what you presented tonight?
We've examined some options. The other version of this that we've considered heavily is when you have multiple families occupying a single parcel. So there could be multiple water meters assigned to a single parcel. That's multiple families. This proposal would charge each one of those the same. What we've also considered is in those circumstances when you have multiple families all residing on one parcel. So that's going to be mobile home parks, it's going to be rental units, fourplexes, 16s, that in those cases, we could drop that fee to a half ERU so that those folks are seeing a fee of $2 per month for those. And so in that case, residential would be two-stage, $2 per month for residences that are on one parcel, multiple residences on one parcel, $4 per month for single-family residential standalone, and then, of course, the commercial fee beyond that.
I'm really happy to hear that that's an option, because I am definitely concerned about those on a fixed income. You know, we have Feeding America, who comes once a month with food boxes for 55 and over, and the whole, you know, road is just lined with cars every month. Seniors are really having a hard time with inflation, and so many families are. So I know it sounds like not a lot, this $4, but you know, when you already don't have enough to cover food and you're on that fixed income as a senior, it does have an impact. And so if there is a way, because that was going to be my next question, especially because that's what if you have multiple, you know, units on top of each other, and you're kind of, you know, why aren't we rewarding them like, kind of like we're rewarding and scaling it to size like we have on the commercial side? Is there a way to kind of mitigate that? And so I'm glad to hear that's potential that for multifamily it could be cut in half. And I just wasn't sure, in terms of how BGMU and the other Warren Water collect water bills, are they able to tell, you know, how big the size of the unit is? Could it be based on percentage of water usage? I mean, are there other communities that do it based on like that type of
Absolutely.
usage?
So, this is City Manager mentioned a moment ago that the program is self-sustaining, that once this program takes off, that it's going to pay for itself. It's going to pick up a lot of programs that are existing across the general budget and move those in. And that's, and by and large, due to keeping it as simple as possible. So we heard you. I know that those were some of the questions that you had the other day during our tour. And so we examined what those options might look like. And we looked at income-based sorts of things, demand sorts of things with regard to water bills. All of those things introduce complexity to the billing cycle that are going to generate a cost. And we think those costs are going to be pretty high. So if we started to look at an income-based system, then we need administrative people to be able to receive that income, prove that that income's correct, adjust that bill, communicate with our outside billing agencies. That's a lot of complexity to the system that's going to eat up a lot of the revenue. So the simpler that we can keep the administrative side of implementing this program, the more of those funds we're going to be able to dedicate to what the community needs, which is, you know, a persistent storm sewer system that meets their needs. So we are absolutely willing to examine, is the ERU size that we've selected of 3,100 square feet, is that a scale that we would want to look at? Of course, making that smaller will drive the costs up for commercial developers. Making that slightly larger will drive the cost down without changing the rate. We could look directly at the rate for an ERU and, of course, just drive that down or up based on the feedback that we get from you guys or from anything else. So it's a program that as long as we can keep it as simple as possible, keep our administration fees low, we can look to be generating the kind of income that we need to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And yeah, we can absolutely look at some of those. But in the residential side, it is our opinion right now that a two-stage would be about as complex as we would want to go with it. So if we chose a different ERU rate, if it wasn't $4, if it was some other, then 50% or 25% or however we structured that we would really want to stay with a maximum of 2 different fees on the residential side. And then, of course, our sliding scale on the commercial side.
Matt, has there been any other communities with the two-tier where you even allow like anyone with the homestead exemption that's 65 and older, they could get a break as well, like the two?
So we did do the research on, are there other communities that have the standard ERU and then some sort of a discount associated with that? Nick did find 2. That's where our $2 number came from, as he found that one. The homestead exemption is not a question that we've researched. So that would be something that we can definitely look.
There be a way to automate that and be able to tie that in, or?
We have to look. I don't know. And the cities that we talked to the closest are the ones that we know the best. So we've talked a lot with City of Hopkinsville. We've talked a lot with Lexington, Louisville, Elizabethtown, our colleagues from those communities who've been dealing with this before, and I know that a homestead exemption hasn't come up in any of the discussions that we've had with those folks. As a matter of fact, our discount program is Hopkinsville's discount program. It's identical.
So there's a general question, I think is behind us, that says we need your approval to like to present a revised ordinance necessary to support and documentation to implement these two programs in an upcoming meeting. I think what we're hearing is a consensus from the five of us up here is that we have thoughts, and those thoughts are, we need options. And I know this is not all on you, but this is on us, to come up with what these options. And I think there's also another question that resides, what is the total generation per month and year that this is going to generate? And I think that needs to be in phases. 1, FELOC, 2, residential, and 3, commercial, broken out. So each one of those would generate X per month and X per year. And what would that look like as 1, 2, 3, and then total to know? That's what we know what we're asking on the tax that's being implemented here to take care of our stormwater and to be able to be a successful future city. So we know there's a cost recommendation because there's a generated amount of revenue that's going to come from those three, correct? Jeff, are you agreeing with that? So once we kind of have that number, we understand what that cost us or what it would be in lieu of if we did this or if we did option A, option B, option C. But we need to know what that revenue looks like. So I have more, to me, there's a second working session that I think would be beneficial to this. This is, a continuation of our working session that we had in our strategic session for the year. However, this wasn't absorbed. What was absorbed is that we have issues. We have stormwater that is getting more and more runoff. And to Andy's question that he posed to you, we grew up here. I grew up on Matlock Road, and it was guaranteed. We were a mile apart from our neighbors, and there was guaranteed there was going to be a lake every 4 to 5 years, on Fred Lively Road. Yes. And we knew the caves run underneath to Lost River. And Lost River, it's always, whether, we build our new river, and that's kind of what I imagine is like, well, what would we change? And then I thought, well, I guess you could build a new man-made river and, have locks like, or, we see all the movies of LA and you see the big, vast, I'm trying to think, I don't know what they're called. Aquifers that run all the way to, the ocean or the runoff. But again, those are things that are natural to us. And it's also understood that we're growing in urban and we're growing in density and we're growing in the county and the city is the fastest in the state for both of us. So we understand there's an issue and we understand that we're going to get there, but I don't think we necessarily see exactly where it's going to be paid for, and we need some options on that. So I'd like to, get what is the revenue from those three that we think it's going to generate per month and year, and then also can we look at some options as we explore. We might do, A, but we might consider option B or C, or et cetera.
Could we, sorry, Mary, could we also add what it's going to cost to make the type of infrastructure we need to put in for the fee in lieu of, and then also all the repairs we need to, so we can have that, in comparison as well?
That number can't exist. That's an iterative process. So with 202 miles of storm sewer to evaluate, as we're moving through, the kinds of things that we would do is we would look at a particular area hydraulically and say, this amount of surface area needs a place to run off to. What's provided now? And then what size do we need to be able to meet that demand? That sort of thing we can do. That's a months-long process for sure. And we had envisioned it being a years-long process. We would work through those issues as we went. With regard to what does it take to restore, rehabilitate, and address all of our critical needs now, we don't know what all of our critical needs are, but we can't wait till we know what they all are before we begin fixing the ones that we've seen. So it would be coincident with one another. We would need to be repairing the worst of the worst that we've seen while we're continuing to look ahead and work on that. So those numbers, I'll do the best that I can. But know that there's going to be an amount of uncertainty looking ahead that far.
I guess what I just mean is that I think we need to make it clear to the citizens that we're not charging extra fees. And it's just going to sit there and we don't really need it and it's going to be awesome. We can use it for whatever. But the reason why, if we do choose that fee is needed is because the needs are so great and it's going to take a long time to get to those. So I just think the scale is important.
I completely understand. That's one of the advantages for it being a fee. Is that can be adjusted annually, up or down. So we can take a look at what revenues we've generated, what are we currently holding, and we can project 5 to 10 to 15 years. Ms. Katie is the one who taught me how to do that sort of thing. So we can absolutely take a look at what we have and say, hey, okay, for the next 5 years, we're going to need to raise the fee 0.5% per year to meet the demand, or vice versa. We've accomplished a lot of what we need to accomplish. This fee can go down over the course of the next several years. Those things are pretty easy. One particular piece, Mr. Alcott, that you asked for, we can't get you an exact number without some investment. The ERU is based on the amount of impervious surface found on a particular parcel. That's a piece of data that's collected aerially with a flight. We'll work and figure out exactly how close we can get, but we do not have that data in hand today.
Okay, so that's one of the things that we need to obtain. But in January, if I recall, we also said we need to do an overall up to down A to Z assessment, correct?
Which is what I was talking about with
right. We
Ms.
don't
Beasley
know
Brown.
what that cost is, but
Right.
we would say, hey, here's our 42, square miles. Let's look at a top-down,
Sure.
assessment of that, and that's also a cost.
Absolutely. That's some of the things that we were talking about. What would we use the funding for?
Right. What would
is,
we,
yeah,
but,
you're
but
assessing
we need
ahead.
to kind of have a plan to understand what that initial, it might come up to be $1 billion. So we understand this is what it costs, and $1 billion, over a period of 30 years is what we need to, get in order to start that plan. But we also, we went under Whiskey Run, we know that, and we know we're doing Chestnut, that's our, next in phase, that's a $7+ million project. We know that this project's gonna be that, but what are, that assessment to me are important things that we should accomplish, in phase. And so, right now we're saying, hey, Chicken Little, this is big problem, sky's falling, this is what we should do, and this is what other cities are doing. Those are great things, but, there's also a no-kidding needs assessment that I think is necessary in this step, and that kind of gives us a plan to say, okay, these are the critical, these are the next critical, and go on down that road. Maybe it's $1 billion, maybe it's $500 million, whatever that cost is. That needs assessment is important. Next step, in my opinion, we should be doing that first.
So that needs assessment it depends on the level of what we provide. An eyes-on visual inspection of that entire storm sewer system, the part that we can access, which is the built environment, is a years-long process, is a multi-million-dollar process in and of itself. However, while you were talking, some of the things that occur to me are we can evaluate our estimated age of some of the pieces and components of the system. We know what those lifespans are for those kinds of materials, so we can absolutely develop some projections based on what data we have in terms of our mapping system, so that we can say, we predict that this much of this particular portion of the system is beyond its expected life. So there's absolutely some projections that I can put together for you, but I wouldn't be able to provide an eyes-on assessment. I've looked at all of these pieces of the system. It would simply take years.
Katie, you answered this a little bit, but you said that most of that occupational tax is spoken for, but I do like the idea. Is there any, I know you said for 20 years in the Trans Park, but is there any, even if it's just a percentage, that could help out this, that we could earmark? Because I do kind of like that can be earmarked to kind of help this out. Because I do agree with everything that everybody said up here, but I also agree with Mr. Powell saying too, it's something that we need to get done as well, because we're going to have issues that's going to go on. So I'm asking, is there any percentage from the occupational tax, maybe once all these jobs get filled?
Well, we're in the process right now of trying to develop the FY26 budget. So we would have to look to see what we could potentially afford. Currently, we're putting, I think, $400,000 of general fund towards stormwater mitigation. There is a long list of projects that are priced out at this point that we can't afford to do because some of them are just too expensive for us to contribute to at the moment. But as we develop this budget, that's something that we could potentially look at. I just can't tell you at this point or guarantee to you at this point what could be available. I just don't know.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to wrap up this discussion. I think it's been eye-opening, and it's eye-opening for our community, and we're absorbing this. We're not taking this lightly. We will figure out a way. We will.
Absolutely.
Unnecessarily, we will.
We'll work diligently to prepare as much as we possibly can to address those unknowns as we can and bring that back to you as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. And commissioners, do you agree this was continuation of this? All right. I think we have that. Let's go ahead and see if there's any community
When we
input.
get it all put together, we'll just give you a heads up and let you know when we're ready, if that's okay.
Yeah, and this,
This may
commissioners
take a while.
continue to send questions and continue to send ideas. We're not just, this is not we've, been working just like the last time we met in January. We've been gaining information. I think all of us have been underneath the city recently or in planning. What we will say is that we're invested and we will figure this out. It's just a matter of, this is a lot to absorb, and we're, in this process. All right. So we have a few, I will say for the first comments, Jace Caldwell, come on up to the podium. And Jace, the way we do this is you're welcome to make your comments, and then I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I'm going to pull up my timer. That way you're...
Okay, well, I'll be brief. I just wanted to express my support to Nick and Matt and the work that they did. I'm a civil engineer, work for Van Meter and Slavey. I've been designing water quality systems for 8 years now, and we've seen the success that the FELOC program has had in the county, and I just wanted to express my support for that in the city. It's a great need, and to speak to the cost to developers, in Warren County, typically, if I have a project that is going to be required to do water quality, my comment to my client is always that whatever the water quality fee in lieu of cost is to them will be my fee. In other words, if you're either going to pay me to design a system or you're going to pay the city to get out of it, because it is that much of a problem for these developers to be able to install those and to be able to maintain them in a karst environment. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thad Lucas. I'll start you whenever you're ready.
All right, let's go. Matt and I have had many conversations over the years, red-faced and everything else, going over stormwater management projects. I'm a civil engineer, own Landmark Engineering. I've also done some developing, and I've been in Bowling Green since 1991, topper here. So the stormwater management is, if you do the fee in lieu of, it actually saves the public money. And how that happens is developers are paying these fees, and they're paying for these stormwater management programs that they're having to implement themselves. that gets passed on to the end user. Who's the end user? The person that buys the house, the person that buys Doritos at the gas station. They're paying for it more than they would if you just paid $4 a month. I live in a county, live right by Western's Farm. I pay the $4 a month. I pay out of pocket to have my recycling done. I think residents would be able to say, hey, I paid into this and I'm seeing development be done. What can we do? Some of our biggest polluters are the farmers along Barren River. Some of the heavy pollutions is the erosion coming from the bank of Barren River. How awesome would it be to take this money from developers, give them some signs and say, look what we did along the riverbank here to give us some stormwater credit, and turn it into a positive for the public to see where their money is going to. And I think that would be more, because what we do on these little small projects, during the construction, we're doing something. After construction's over, the stormwater quality is done. They're not cleaning these things, they're not maintaining them, and you're spending a lot of city money going after these guys in violations, making them clean them out. But if you do an overall project, something like a riverfront, something that gives you a massive generational project that gives you quality, we're still having to take care of the quantity. The quantity will not change. The quality is what we're talking about. And I think it's a very positive thing, and it's something I think you've got to implement both at the same time. And in the county, we do the same thing, what Chase said. You can pay us the engineering fees, and this is basically giving me a pay cut as an engineer, because we won't be developing these anymore. We'll all be bidding to work with the city to do them maybe. But you're going to pay me, or you can put this project in FELOC. And we don't have any county clients anymore that don't do anything but FELOC. It's not even a question. It's straight FELOC and go. And then the county's able to take that and do some real projects that they can boast, look what we've done for you guys. So I think $4 a month, while it does seem big, I mean, pack of cigarettes, candy bar and a Coke, I mean, that's what we're talking about. And to clean our water for future generations is a small fee. I think most of the residents would be willing to pay. So.
Thank you, sir. All right, next is Rodney Rogers.
First of all, I want to apologize for the way I'm dressed. It's just the way I dressed since I retired. And I said I would never wear another pair of pants that required a belt, so here I am. I'm glad I came tonight. Got to hear Matt talk very knowledgeably and at a high level about stormwater and why we need to do this. I'm just going to speak briefly about from a developer standpoint. Okay, everyone in here knows the cost of development has increased significantly in the last 2 or 3 years, beyond our control. And recently, I just got a set of plans finished up in the city, and stormwater or water quality was incorporated into it. Okay, a water quality design. Actually, the cost of implementing or building water quality in it is going to make the project a no-go. It's not going to be feasible. Okay, that's the expense, the true actual expense of adding water quality to 150 lot development. Okay, I know I've personally come to you all in the past, and some of my associates have, about what can we do in the city to make it more affordable to develop or more appealing to develop. Well, really, it boils down to dollars. And I personally am here to speak on behalf and in favor of the FELOC. It's been very successful in the county. And this example that I'm giving you of this project, if I were to move forward and do it and pay for the water quality, I would be spending close to $500,000 on water quality features and practices that is only going to be, it's only going to be an expense to the city in the future by maintaining it. Okay, I'm going to spend a bunch of money, a developer's going to spend a bunch of money on something that's only going to be an expense to the city perpetually, okay? The fee in lieu of, you know, which is a good, healthy amount that the county charges, and from what I've seen, you're gonna kind of follow that in the residential, or in the residential development market. Whatever that fee is, that's money that you've got to go and do something beneficial with, okay? Not sign up for maintaining this system that, you know, may or may not get maintained correctly in the future. Who knows that you'll even have the money to do it correctly in the future without implementing some type of source of maintaining. I think another thing that everybody needs to realize is there's very little difference between sanitary sewer and storm sewer. They're both conveying contaminants. One of them is hydrocarbons off of the streets. One of them is sewage, which none of us want to walk through, okay? But there's an expense to that luxury that we have in maintaining our stormwater, getting it under the ground to where it's not something that, you know, that we're having to struggle with. So, fee in lieu of.
All right, thank you, Rogers. That's all the people we have signed up tonight. Our next meeting is April 1st, 2025. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.